Hi everyone, Fox is here, and I'm bringing you my September book haul because I've been away for quite a while and I need to catch up. So this is going to be first part of September book haul. This first part of the book haul is going to be fantasy books. Almost all of them are YA books, maybe just one or two adult books, but otherwise just fantasy or magical realism. Well, let's get started. The first book that I have here is Rosemary Andrew. This is book number 1 in a series by Seanan McGuire. I've read Shannon's Everhard the Doorway, absolutely loved it, but I was a bit hesitant to pick up other books by her just because I wanted to read a standalone, like a full-fledged standalone novel before I make up my mind whether I want to start the series or not. But then I just went ahead and purchased book number 1 in the series. This is urban fantasy, adult fantasy. No, really nothing about it, but I loved Everhard the Doorway, so I hope to see more of that similar style in this one. Then I got myself Dave Duncan's The Gilded Chain, and I'm pretty sure I read this book before, but I don't really remember it. I read just a couple of books by Dave Duncan before, and I really liked them. That is one of those classic 80s, 90s adult fantasy writers that always keeps popping up in my recommendations and Goodreads, and it's also blurb by Anne McCaffrey, so, I mean, it's one of the classics, so I decided to pick it up from Book Outlet. Honestly, I cannot really tell you what it's about, but it's supposed to be book number 1 in the series. I hope I did get book number 1. Yes. Okay. Then I got myself a copy of Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. It's one of those books that I've been avoiding to read for quite a long time. The reason for that being because there was a movie and everyone started comparing the movie to the book, and I've never read the book, so I didn't want to watch the movie. And everyone was saying, oh, but you love fantasy and you love magical realism, and this should be something that you would absolutely love. But so yeah, I mean, I think the time has come for me to finally read this book. I got it from Ape Books, so it came in quite a used, it's quite a used copy. I didn't really like Yellow Pages, but I didn't want to spend much money on this book, and it was also on hold at my library, and it took forever for them to move me up the queue, so I was like, what the heck, I'm just going to purchase my own copy. Then I got myself a copy of The Wild Swans by Pack Care. Also got it from Ape Books, I believe, and it's been on my wish list on Amazon for a couple of years. This is a retelling of the Wild Swans fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen, as far as I remember, and that is one of my favorite fairy tales. And this is supposed to be a magical realism / fantasy, plus supposedly has a queer character in it, and you know that's my buzzword. So I finally decided to pick it up because I realized that this book probably will not go back to print. So I just had to get a used copy, and I got it, and I'm happy to have it. Hopefully I'll get to it sometime soon, but knowing just how many books I have right now in my TBR, it might actually happen next year. And then I got myself book number 1 in the Becca Cooper series, and that is Terrier by Tamora Pierce. This is one of those books that also has been on my TBR / radar / wish list for God knows how long, and it kept popping up in my Book Outlet recommendations, so I was like, what the heck, I might as well get it, and hopefully I will get to it sometime soon. I'm really looking forward to reading more fantasy with female protagonists. I don't know when I will get to this book, but I'm really looking forward to reading it because I've heard only amazing things about it. Then I got myself book number 2 in the Captive Prince trilogy, and this is by C.S. Paquette. This one is called Princess Gambit, and I purchased book number 1 a couple of months ago, but I didn't read it because I wanted to get all the books in the trilogy before I actually binge read all of them. And I've been patiently waiting for Book Outlet to get books number 2 and 3 in stock. Book number 3 unfortunately is still not available, but I got myself a copy of book number 2, which makes me very happy, and I'll just wait for book number 3 and then read all 3 of them. So yay! And here is another book that I had on my wishlist for God knows how long, and this is Garth Nix Sabriel. This is book number 1 in the trilogy cannot tell you anything except for it's YA and fantasy, and it supposedly has a female protagonist, and I want to read more of those, especially since this book has been on my wishlist for quite some time. I know I say that a lot about a lot of books, but that's just because I've been reading fantasy for years and years now, but I barely read any YA, and whenever I had a book on Goodreads or anywhere else recommended to me that would fall into YA category, I would just write it down and never pick it up for some reason. And like I mentioned before, I started reading YA just basically a year and a half ago now, so I have not really read a lot of books that have been out for quite some time, so I have a lot of catching up to do. And then I got myself an arc of Fate of Flames by Sarah Ruffley, and that is book number 1 in the Aphages series. This is actually an arc, and I got it from the publisher. The book is coming out in November of this year, and I think I won it on Goodreads giveaway, so I'm really excited about it because I've never won anything on Goodreads, like ever. This is the first time I've ever won anything in a year and a half, so I got really excited. And this is the book about a world in which there are phantoms that basically plague the world, and there are 4 chosen girls who have magical powers, and there is another one who suddenly appears to be the 5th one, and she's very reluctant to be the chosen one. So this, I cannot really tell you much about the book because I really don't know much about it, but this is an arc, and the author is Canadian. This is the only thing I can tell you, and that's a good thing. That excites me. And also YA fantasy, that excites me too. I hope I will get to it sometime soon. I don't think I will get it before its release date, but thank you, Simon & Schuster. That really made my day. Then I have Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea by April Genevieve Tucholsky. And yes, this is the way you're supposed to pronounce her last name. I actually went to the author's website and I was really, really embarrassed by the fact that I've been reading her name wrong. So it is pronounced as Tucholsky, not Tucholsky, how most of the people would read it, and I was reading it like that myself when I was reviewing Winged Poppy Midnight. By the way, I loved Winged Poppy Midnight. This may be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I really enjoyed it. That's why I decided to pick this book up. And this is the book number 1 in duology. It's supposed to be very dark, mysterious, magic powers, probably magical realism, and also YA, but it's supposed to be really dark, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, I kind of like the typography, and I like the title, so hopefully it will not disappoint me. Then I picked up a copy of Ive Ran the Bone by Julie Ashbaugh, and this is supposed to be book number 1 in her trilogy, which is set in prehistoric world, and is supposed to be a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. Let me be honest with you here. I do not like Pride and Prejudice. I really do not like Jane Austen novels, and because of that, I was really hesitant to pick this book up, even though whenever I would go to Indigo, I would see it there on the shelf and be like, I'm really, really curious about how this writer would spin off like prehistoric world plus fantasy. So I was really, really curious about this book, and I wanted to pick it up from the library, but unfortunately it was not available there. It was not even available for a pre-order. So I decided just to go and pick this one up, and I did something that I never do in bookstores when I shop. I sat down and I read a couple of first pages, and I never do that just because I usually know what I want or I have certain expectations of books. I read a couple of pages and it was interesting enough and the language didn't suck. So I decided to pick this one up, even though I do expect it to be very romance heavy, which is not really my thing when it comes to YA books, but still the idea of a fantasy world being set in a prehistoric world, so we will see a lot of tribes and whatnots, so that it really interests me. I cannot really tell you what this book is about. It is blurbed by Sarah J. Maas and Amy Kaufman, so that is a good thing, even though I have not read Throne of Glass series and I hated Illuminate, but still, it should be a good thing, right? Anyway, I'm looking forward to reading this one because I have never read a YA fantasy book set with clans and prehistoric setting. I have not read the summary of the book because, like always, I prefer to go into the book completely blind. So, and since it's supposedly allures to Pride and Prejudice, this is another reason why I don't want to do that. But since I read a couple of pages, I'm quite keen on picking this one up, so hopefully it will happen sometime soon. Then I picked up a copy of A Wild Swan by Michael Cunningham, and this is also supposed to be the retelling of the Wild Swans fairy tale, and it has no connection to the book that I showed you before, but it's also fairy tale retelling. And Michael Cunningham, as you know, is the author of The Hours. That's another book that I have not read, but I watched the movie and I really enjoyed it. And this book is also full of illustrations. So I'm looking forward to it. It's supposed to be magical realism / fantasy / retelling. And definitely it's one of my favorite fairy tales, so I'm looking forward to reading it. Then I got myself a copy by Gaslight by Stephen Price, and this is a Victorian detective mystery story. It's a huge book. It's an adult book. It's over 700 pages. I've been eyeing it for days, if not weeks, before I actually purchased my own copy because it was super expensive. It was almost $40, and this is not how much I usually spend on a single book. But I wanted to read it so badly, and my library didn't carry enough copies of it, and the wait would have been months and months and months. So I decided to purchase my own copy. I cannot wait to read it. I think it will be a very good winter read because it's very dark, very mysterious. There is some stuff happening in there, and it's set in Victorian England, so I'm looking forward to it because this is my favorite time period, and this is one of my favorite type of stories. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but Jesus Christ, this book is super heavy, super expensive, and super big. Whew. And here's another gigantic book, and that is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. As you know, it's book number 4 in the Throne of Glass series. I picked it up from Book Outlet for about $7, which is an amazing price. However, all of my other books are in paperbacks, so now I kind of regret this decision. I have not started the series yet because, as you know, I like to purchase all books first before reading anything. It's a bit of annoyance, yeah. But anyway, I picked it up. I'm very happy to have it. Here we go. Then I got a second book in the Young Elites trilogy, and this is The Rose Society by Mary Lou. I have not read book number 1, but I saw this one available in the hardback on Book Outlet for insanely cheap, so I decided to pick it up. And hopefully I will read the trilogy very soon. Then I got a book by Alexandra Duncan, and this is book number 2 in her duology called Sound. I God Salvage a couple of months ago. I think it was my August book haul. I don't really know much about it except for it's sci-fi YA and it has a queer protagonist. That's why I picked up book number 1. I have not read it because I wanted to purchase book number 2 and read both back to back. So this is what I did, and hopefully I'll get to it sometime very soon. But like I always say, I have so many books and so little time, so yeah. And then I got myself book number 3 in a trilogy, The Witches Pyar, and this is by Josephine Angelini. I read The Trial by Fire, book number 1 in the trilogy, just a couple of months ago. I absolutely loved it. I think I read it in August. I really enjoyed it to the point that while I was mid-book, I went ahead and purchased book number 2, and book number 3 came out in September while I was on vacation, so I got it pre-ordered and it was delivered to me, and I'm super excited. And this cover, just look at this cover. I think whoever designed those covers just needs to get an extra love for it because it's so beautiful. I really like it. And the last but definitely not least is another book that I pre-ordered and it arrived while I was on vacation, and that is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Now, I have not read book number 1, but now I have book number 2 and I'm super excited. One of the things that I did not expect is that this book would have red pages, and I think it's super cool. Honestly, it is, and the inside of it is also red, which is, I mean, seriously, but black and red, it's just gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful YA fantasy book covers. Really excited to read it. Hopefully, I will get to it by the end of the year. I know I'm really behind on a lot of series, but For some reason, this one is one of those that I'm most excited about. This is it. This is the end of my part 1 of my September book haul. I decided to split my video in 2 parts because the second part will have all the books which do not really fall into YA or fantasy categories. So that will be a bit of a random haul, and my video was getting so long that I decided just to split it into parts. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know down below if you read any of the books or if you plan to read any of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye! I'm wearing a sweater because it's finally sweater weather, and it's actually been quite chilly outside, to the point that when I went outside last night, I was just like, nope, going back home, no, 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 no.